I believe everyone is able to have that fairy tale love where both people get to love each other for who they are and feel accepted. Hi, my name is Ariel Levitt, and I interview couples that have beautiful, loving relationships and dive in with them to find out what allows them to just love the person for who they are. I talked to Emily this week from the Joy Space, and one thing that is just really remarkable about her that I love is that she just finds the joy in everything. And it's not an easy thing to do, but she works on it and she gets to kind of give us some insight on how to just be comfortable in our own skin also. We get to dive in with her and find out more and talk about it. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Emily. I'm so grateful that you could join me today. And I'm so excited to talk to you further about the Joy Space.
Yes. Nice to talk to you. Thank you for inviting me.
First off, tell us a little bit about the Joy Space.
Yeah. So the Joy Space is it's in its very early days, but I wanted to create a community, a place where women who want to follow their dreams in life, like kind of working on themselves, finding the answers within themselves, and know that's a journey that they just feel called to take. That's what I'm trying to create within the Joy Space, is a place where they feel that they can find the joy on that journey, because our dreams are great and it's awesome when we decide to go for them, and it'll be great when we achieve them and then go on from there. But life is a journey. So we've got to enjoy that process on the way. And when you're doing that work and you're on that journey, you bump up against so much stuff of your own, and it can be hard to work through all that, and a lonely place to be if you're not connected to other people doing the same thing. Yeah. So that's kind of the aim of it, because it should be a fun and exciting and a beautiful journey, as well as just, it shouldn't just be a hard one.
And it's like, what is it saying? Like, it's about the journey, not the destination, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so how did you get to the Joy Space? What brought you to this?
Yeah. So I've been on a sort of personal development journey really for 5+ years, I'd say. And yeah, it's always so nice when you meet people who are doing the same kind of work and like investigating the same kind of thought processes and reading the same kind of books and that kind of thing. But I found it, I very rarely came across those people. And this last year has been 2020, a transformative year in so many ways for so many people and the world, I'm sure, as things continue to unfold. But it's given me so much time to think and to sit with myself and know what's truly important. And I kind of knew pretty early on, when everything sort of shut down and went very odd, that this year needed to count. Like, it was like, this is the time that you need to do something with all these things that you've been realizing and thinking about and wanting to do. And it's a massive process in terms of figuring out how to use those things that you come up with. And yeah, it's been a process of thinking all of last year, really. And also then took a course sort of September to autumn last year, which is how we connected. And it was just so joyous to suddenly be connected with so many people who are doing the same kind of work, who are doing, who are treating their dreams seriously, like there's something, that they're a message to be followed, and not just that'd be nice someday, but never taking them seriously. So it was really actually connecting with so many people like that, that actually finally sort of put the final bits of the puzzle together as to, this is who you're meant to work with, this is who you're meant to serve, this is who you're meant to create something for. Yeah, that's how I kind of came to the Joy Space.
That's awesome. It's so cool how and you've now found a community. I know you had spoken about being in a long-term relationship and then coming out of that relationship, and now you're really working on yourself. And working on self-love, right? Figuring out more of what you want, because then you're allowing that other person to love you for you.
Yeah. I mean, self-love is kind of comes in so many forms. Essentially, you don't have to be setting up a business or whatever to be working on that. But it's, yeah, it became very apparent to me when my relationship ended that I had a journey to go on my own before I really felt ready to look at another long-term relationship. It just didn't feel right. Obviously, you have the hope that you'll bump into someone perfect at some, perfect moment.
That romantic love.
Hope. But I knew that that had happened for a reason.
Yeah.
And my work on myself sort of started several years before that ended. And in reality, it was almost like it was prepping me for it ending. You kind of, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, we were together for 9 years. The last couple of years were sort of rocky and, the start of the end sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in reality, it probably could have ended at about 7 years. But, we tried to keep it working on it. And but looking back, I wouldn't have handled it in anywhere near the same way at that stage because I hadn't done that work on myself. So it was like that 2 years before it ended was the preparation, and then that growth has just continued since. But yeah, it's funny how the timing of things always, generally, there's a behind everything.
So what are some of the things that you've done for yourself or for this process of self-growth or self-love?
So the first, because the whole of my 20s basically were in a relationship. I went on several holidays on my own. I think traveling for so many people can be quite transformative.
Yeah.
They weren't long-term trips. So I'm not going to try and claim that traveling changed me, but it just made me realize how much more I could do on my own. When you're so used to being with someone, I think so many people find this, when you're so used to being with someone, you just are like, well, how am I going to do anything? Because I'm on my own. But I guess I'm quite lucky that I'm quite okay with my own company.
Yeah.
I'm quite introverted. So
first off, let's pause there for just a second. That's like, I think the hardest thing. I mean, that's the first relationship. You have to be okay with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being okay in your own company.
Yeah. I always have been. Like, even when I was in a relationship, it wouldn't bother me if he was out or going away for the weekend with his friends, or like, it's always, I'm just quite happy. I call it pottering. Like, I can potter for days and it doesn't bother me. I think I've always got so many thoughts and things going on in my head that I never really feel like it's blank and there's nothing, which has been very useful in 2020. But so I guess in that sense, I was never scared of the being alone, as in not having anyone there all the time, because I knew I could cope with that. It's more the, who you're going to go on a day trip with, who you're going on a holiday with, who you're going to out for dinner with. I still haven't done the taking myself out on a date yet in a restaurant, but maybe that will come.
Yeah, a little difficult right now, but yes, I think maybe that would be the next step, because it's an uncomfortable thing, and not being on your phone and just being at dinner, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you just have to sit there and have everybody watch you. You're going to watch everybody else, or whatever it is that you feel like everybody's watching you. Usually no one cares. They're in their own meal, but you're like, I think I'm in a fishbowl right now.
Yeah, you feel like everyone's gonna be sitting there thinking, oh, why shouldn't I? Or
And being comfortable with that, because that's a very uncomfortable thing to experience, but comfortable at the same time.
I love cooking. I love a big part of my life, and it is something that brings me so much joy. So I almost always cook properly for myself. I really do. A lot of the time wish that there was someone else to cook for, because I'm also like a natural sort of nurturer, and I like feeding people and creating a nice space and a nice environment and stuff for people. It gets a bit kind of, oh, when, you know, month after month there's no one else to do that for. But you can still do that for friends and things.
We're also creatures of needing another physical being, you know, we're creatures.
Yeah, connection is so vital to humans as a species. And it's, especially as an introvert, it can be actually quite easy to forget that. And it gets too negative, you know, you get too much into the on your own habit, and so you kind of almost have to make a conscious decision to go, I need to have a chat with someone. Especially this last year, I heard someone say on a podcast or something recently that it's actually been potentially this, you know, COVID time and not being able to see people properly when we're locked down, it's actually potentially been harder on introverts than extroverts, because the extroverts will automatically seek the connection. They'll go out, they'll make the phone call, they'll arrange the Zoom call, they'll seek it because they know they need it. Whereas introverts don't, and it's not, it's less in their nature to sort of go and make that.
Yes, it's very important to like have that once a week, or at least Zoom conversation with your friend or whatever it may be.
I've learned a lot about, maybe going off topic, but I learned a lot about introversion in fact, that was one of the first sort of things I started reading books on, or a book on, when I was still with my ex. And I read a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, which in fact everyone should read it, because half the population is an introvert, pretty much. So it's great to understand each other. But once I understood, because I used to think I was a bit odd, it was really helpful to understand myself. That was one of the first things I sort of started understanding when I started reading books and learning about kind of, you know, the mind and personal development and things like that. I read a book on introversion, and it was like reading about myself, which was so eye-opening. And then I was like, oh, I'm normal then. So like 45% of the population thinks like this. Oh, okay. I'm not faulty. It's just, I need that time on my own to recharge. Whereas extroverts need connection to recharge. Essentially, that's but it explained so much, and also explained that there's just as extroverts have great things that they can do with that, introverts, they're usually very observant, and they'll think a lot before they speak and things like that. So that in itself has its own power and benefits to situations. So that helped with the self-love on that topic, because I suddenly accepted myself and went, oh, I'm okay. It's just how I'm made. And actually I can find the benefits in that, rather than just think that I'm faulty or there's something wrong with me.
What are some of the things that you've learned on this journey of self-love for yourself? And like, what would you recommend for somebody else to do? What was something that was really key for you in getting to know yourself better?
Sit with feelings. Whatever horrible thing you might be going through. Because often I think the catalyst to going on that journey is something horrible happening, something hard happening, and it can be very kind of an automatic response to block the feelings, not feel them, to numb them. But you really need to sit with them and understand them in order to work through them. Because if you bottle them up or block them or just push them away and think I'll be fine, you're only going to end up with a bigger problem down the line in some way, shape or form. In fact, I was kind of fascinated at myself when I split up with my ex, that I didn't actually, and I'm not a big drinker anyway, but I enjoy a couple of glasses of wine probably a week, that kind of. But for several months when we split up, I just didn't want to drink at all. I just didn't. And I almost thought I kind of observed this in myself and thought,
Yeah.
bit odd, but because I think it's so easy to just reach for that, drown your sorrows and, numb the pain. But I think I just knew that I had to sit with it and feel it and go through all of that,
The process.
wrenching feeling and pain to get to the other side, or, just to be on the process, the healing process. And and that goes, not just after breakups, but on a day-to-day basis. Try and actually just feel your feelings, sit with yourself where you are.
There's so many distractions now where it's so easy to not really sit with your feelings.
Try and just have quiet. Try and just, or even if it's just like music, but try and just have something that allows you to just be without being taken off somewhere else. And Netflix and things, that's another numbing way. You can just disappear. Their brains can just disappear off, and they don't actually then process and sit with whatever it is they're working through. Allowing yourself that, I would say, is a big part of self-love. Allowing yourself that process time. I've always been very aware that I need process time, and some people don't need as much, but I think because I'm aware of it, I give myself it. Whereas I think if people aren't used to processing, their own thoughts and feelings, they perhaps don't allow them in, or even realize they're there, and it then comes out in other ways which don't serve them or other people necessarily.
100%. The stuff that you do to work on yourself and to make yourself feel the best you can in your own skin, and then just allow everything else to come. Then you can really receive, and that person can really enjoy you, because then you know who you are and what you want, and not in like a snobby way.
I think if you don't understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling it in all areas of life, not just romantically, but why something is irritating you, or why you're reacting in a certain way to something, and how to deal with that in a healthy way, then that's just gonna cause massive ructions between you and whoever you end up with. Because if you're not honest with yourself, how are you going to be honest with someone else as to why an interaction is or isn't working? And also accept that they have their own, quirks and ways of doing things, or they might react to something in a certain way that isn't necessarily the best way to react. But the more emotionally mature and self-aware you both are, the more you can understand that in the other person and be like, okay, well, I think he did that because of that, or she did that because of that. And so we can talk about it. And also, the more you understand yourself, the less you take other people's perceptions of it personally. I think that's such a massive thing that you can kind of almost observe it in other couples. They blow up at each other because they just perceive something in a way they didn't mean it. The automatic reaction is just defense. Rather than let's figure that out. What's going on? It's not inquiry, it's defense. And and that's friendships, it's work relationships, it's everything. But to come to that place, you have to be aware of yourself.
100%. Thank you, Emily, so much for joining me. You are the definition of joy space. I feel like every time I'm with you, I feel so joyful and so uplifted, and it giggles all the way around. It's just, but also some great insight, that you really are just such a wonderful person, such a light in this world. Thank you for sharing, and all the self-work that you've done and teaching us is just absolutely beautiful. Emily, where can people find you?
Cool. So at the moment, my Instagram is the.joyspace, and there's a group on Facebook which is just literally called The Joy Space, no spaces in between or anything. But there's a link to that on my Instagram, so that's probably the easiest route to find it if you're on Instagram. So the.joyspace, and other channels as they become available and set up will all be findable through there.
Emily and I got to talk about so many things: introverts and extroverts, knowing yourself, feeling comfortable in your own skin, also finding the joy when you do things, appreciation of everything you do in life. And then her relationship and how she just knew that it was time for something else, prepared herself, then sat with her feelings and processing that relationship, being okay with that. Really, really remarkable. She's just, I believe, the joy. She's just so joyful and wonderful and just lovely. Absolutely lovely. If you want to check out a little video clip of her and get to see even the video, check it out on the Facebook page at Elevate Love, or follow us on Instagram. Us, when I say us, I mean me. Follow me on Instagram and check out all the other interviews. So Instagram is elevate.love.xo. See y'all next Monday.
So this is love, la 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 love. I can feel this is real, this is